You are in Iraq. I'm getting confused right now. There's so much IRAs that we're going to fucking war with right now. But you are an Iraq and Afghanistan veteran, and you're in the National Guard. And we met through numerous different things, political things. But yeah. So talk about what it was like being deployed to first Kuwait, then eventually Iraq.
Right. So I had gone into college as a member of the National Guard and remember driving in on September 11th wondering what in the world were these towers and why would they have anything to do with my life in Nebraska. And within a couple of years, that was 2003, I had been turned into a truck driving unit and from infantry and been essentially conditioned to know that I was going to be going eventually. And we all met together for our 2 weeks of training at your National Guard units typically did. And there were some new bodies in the barracks sleeping around us. And I didn't really think of it as a young 22-year-old at the time. And lo and behold, that Sunday night, we were put in for a standard formation and told, hey, you're going to be in Iraq within a month. So, or Kuwait within a month or so. I had not believed in any of the narrative. I had wondered why we were not having a war declared if they were going to be putting my life at risk when I had volunteered to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, or an imminent threat. And I guess 9/11 was the imminent threat that justified it. So after a lot of reading, a lot of prayer, and a lot of trying to figure things out, I decided that I wouldn't be a conscientious objector. I'd just sort of do my part to keep the man next to me alive and observe critically and really see what I saw, you know?
You saw a lot, but one of the first things you kind of tell me about when you got to Kuwait is when you read the 9/11 Commission report. How did that go? What was your opinion on that at the time? Because like I feel like around like current day, nobody really even looks at that shit because everybody already knows like it's all bullshit. But I think maybe sometimes people should just look back and really kind of see how ridiculous it really was. So what was your opinion at the time of that?
Well, I'm a data driven guy. There's probably some spectrum stuff somewhere in there, you know. And so I sat in Kuwait. We were given 2 weeks to climatize, get used to the heat before we were going to be driving into Iraq and actually in danger. And so I sat and read Kierkegaard's Fear and Trembling, which is essential for anybody who's going to war. If you have faith and don't really wonder where God's leading you in all this, and the 9/11 Commission report. And if anyone will pull up the 9/11 Commission report for themselves and index, just search WTC7, or it's 7 WTC, the 2 times it's actually mentioned, I believe it is. And the 2 times it is mentioned, the Office of Emergency Management Headquarters is in Building 7, and they, despite the building being evacuated, hunker down in their bunker. And other than that, they don't even bother giving us an excuse. And that was kind of, I just, as a 22-year-old, I was like, well, lie to me about that. At least tell me something.
The office fires.
Right? Just something. Office fire, something. Just give me something printed on an official government commission report. And please give me something. And there was nothing there. And I went on to
Yeah. I can't believe they kind of come up with a good lie or something like. At least with the Epstein stuff, and we're not gonna get into that right now. But at least with that, they're like it was the Democrats. Like they just say it's the Democrats' fault.
What frustrated me is I had read enough Baudrillard at that time to know that if you omit something from something so essential as a commissioned report, commissioned artwork, right? You omit it. Now all of a sudden it just didn't happen. You forget all about it. Nobody goes back and looks at those documents, as you say. So if you just simply omit certain things that you can't lie about, it didn't happen within a few generations. And I think that's something that when you asked me to speak and answer some questions that you had, those generations, just knowing how quickly, watching Iran and watching that build up was so similar within 20 years that it drove me bonkers. So,
Yeah, that's kind of why I have you here, is because I don't want the next generation to fall to the same propaganda that you, not you, but like your generation fell through, because I feel like you kind of knew it was bullshit, but you were already like, you were in the National Guard in 99. So it's not like you, which a lot of people did, it's not like you joined because you like bought it.
right.
Really.
I, I wanted, I wanted to defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, since I was about 6,
Mm.
maybe 7. I think it was because when you get to first grade, you don't get to play with the toy train anymore.
Mm.
And I was like, what? And I went home and I was like, Mom, I'm not going to school anymore. And she's like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to join the Army anyway. Like, why do I need to do this? So ever since that young age, I did want to. And figured guard, finish college, decide whether or not I wanted to go active at that time, and then history took me instead, I suppose.
What type of missions or like sort of procedures did you go through in Iraq? What were you exactly doing?
Yeah, so uh, Dick Cheney, back in, we were just discussing,
The
had
oil
this,
company?
it's the same company, I believe it was LBJ, had some influence in, clear back in Vietnam. So this is a company that's been around forever, but I mentioned in one of the chapters of my thesis for my bachelor's, I wrote a bachelor's thesis on basically a memoir of my time in Iraq.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the questions that had come up was with regards to armor. And I watched Donald Rumsfeld get put on the spot, watched him get fired. And so I wrote an essay about that. But I sourced.
The journalist got fired.
This one's, the Brown and Root, Kellogg Brown and Root Services. So I got to essentially escort 3 or 4 semi trucks for every U.S. Army Freightliner long haul truck. So there were 3 or 4 times the number of third country national civilians that had been hired by Kellogg Brown and Root KBR Services, Dick Cheney's company, that he had retired from as CEO in order to run for vice president, and then was given a $6 billion, $7 billion contract that nobody else could bid for.
Yeah.
Had the oil technology to be able to increase the productivity of the Iraqi nationalized wells, and assumed that they'd be able to step in there and say, you will take our technology early on in the war. And Iraq said no, because then we'll owe you forever. And that fell apart. But I think that had a lot of the idea that maybe that service and the increased output, as well as the freedom that liberation would be provided, might, they thought, lead to a short war. But by the time I got there, Rumsfeld had fired the army, and that was the last job that Saddam had provided anybody for 10 years. And so when you fire hundreds of thousands of trained soldiers, they go home and they get angry and they wage war on your occupying force. I mean, it's not rocket surgery.
So he fired. Who'd he fire? Exactly.
The Ba'athist regime. All of Saddam's men, all of the army, all of everybody in Iraq proper.
Yeah. And
so,
what did they eventually fought back against?
They went home and started an insurgency.
Okay.
Just like I would have done. I was watching Red Dawn as a child going, man, if those Soviets ever invade Nebraska, I'm going to take them all out with my little gunpowder toilet roll dynamite stick.
That's what people don't think about, like our like that support the presence in certain countries. Like they don't take into consideration what if it was the U.S. because nobody has like invaded the U.S. since was the 1812 war. Like, I mean, so nobody can have that frame of reference at all.
I actually use that to explain what's going on in Israel-Palestine right now. The idea that if the document that was basically Germany paid Mexico, I want to say it was about $12 million to invade the U.S. during World War I. and said, if you invade and you declare war on the United States in the South, we'll give you back the land that they took from you.
That's yeah.
And so in my fictitious, I watched a little Philip K. Dick, and I was like, hey, man, I'm going to write one that's on Estados Unidos, right? Those of you that are Spanish speaking, your land is now Spain's. Europe just declared it. And guess what? They're shipping Spain over here to occupy your land. And if you don't like it, you can go to either Mexico or Canada. I mean,
Yeah.
and that's a perfect analogy. You'd have, Texas is Gaza. You'd have, it'd be great. So.